So in this first khutbah, I want to explore bihawlillah wa quwwati some of the important reasons why we have institutions of scholars and fuqaha that we follow, and why these institutions are important, and what can be lost if, na'udhu billah, that connection is severed from those fuqaha who we follow. In order for us to explore this, we have to be students of history. We have to look to the past and see what happened to other nations, what happened to other communities when they began playing fast and loose with this connection to their religious leaders. For that, we have to turn to Christianity. And before the formation of, or the Reformation of the Vatican, of the Catholic Church, one of the older popes, Pope Pius, argued vehemently against it at that time. His words were, "Men have rebelled against that Christianity which is true and faithful to Christ and his doctrine." Of course, I'm not promoting Christianity here. My point is that he rejected some of the reforms that came forward. And he says that, mark my words, the Christianity that they will have in the future, this is Pope Pius himself, it's Pope Pius in his own words, the Pope, previous Pope of the past, he says, they will fashion a new kind of Christianity which is to their own liking. An idol which neither saves, which is not opposed to the passions of our desires, nor to the greed of gold or silver, nor is it opposed to the pride of life. It is a new religion without any soul. In fact, it is without religion at all. Now he, Pope Pius XII, predicted this. And he said, mark my words, if you tread down this path, that you are now saying that this religion, that this doesn't relate to us, this, he's not saying I reject your ideas, but your radical ideas that you're saying, to democratize religious knowledge, let it be in the hands of everybody, so the priesthood of every believer. It didn't go entirely in that direction, but that was what was being pushed, and somewhere in between is where they ended up. But the point is that it ended up becoming a disaster. History has shown us how things have ended up. That their complaint was that, well, this religious institution doesn't speak to our modern needs. It has become irrelevant. But then the question that then comes up, who guides who? Is a religious institution to be guided by the masses? Or are the men of Ahlul Fadl wal Ilm and piety to guide the masses? And we see that certain modernist movements in the Muslim world, especially after the Second World War, or even prior to that at the turn of the century, advocated these sorts of things. And this sort of rise of pseudo-intellectuals in both the Sunni and the Shi'i world have advocated eerily similar ideas and movements and kalam, which is almost so similar to Protestantism. It is so similar. To a student of history, when you look at what is being advocated today in certain places, and you look at what these reformists had advocated to the Christian church, in fact, I've often heard them say that we are the Martin Luther of our time. Well, what is so to be praised about Martin Luther? So the question is, who guides who? Because we understand that during the ghaiba, well, the function of the imam and the function of the faqih is of three very important things. Hami al-Sharia, that the faqih is there to protect the Sharia, that the Sharia is the way towards faithfulness, the road towards God. He is there to protect it. He's its hami. 2, ta'aleem al-jahil, to teach the one who doesn't know. So this person must be the supreme teacher, the supreme mu'allim, the one whom everyone looks up to for guidance. With 3, daf' al-munkar, and this individual protects the ummah and the community from munkar, And he understands it, and he understands how it comes in its various turuq and its various ways and its various avenues. So who will perform this? Who will perform these tasks unless modern man no longer is interested in these three things? No longer wants the Sharia to be protected. No longer wants the Jahil to be taught. And no longer wants Daf' al-Munkar. Someone has to fulfill this role. Logic tells us someone has to fulfill this role. So the question is it up to each and every person to fulfill this role? That it's just a priesthood, every believer is a priest, every believer is a Maulana, every believer is a faqih. We saw how that turned out in other religious traditions. Not necessarily in Catholicism, but in Protestantism and Reform Judaism. We've seen how this experiment has gone on and on. In fact, there's a scholar who's written a book about, a Jewish scholar at Harvard University wrote a very interesting book about how Judaism became a religion. That in the 18 and 1900s, the Jews of Germany came under profound pressure, saying either you reform or you don't fit into Europe any longer. Change your ways, change your rituals, change the way you dress, and then maybe you will be accepted into the bosom of Europe. It's by Batnitsky at Harvard. And they did it. And now they're saying, Ya Wayla. Because now we don't have a religion that we can recognize anymore. We don't have a way of life that we can recognize anymore. Was it really a zero-sum game? Were we ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just get rid of everything? And we listened to the likes of, Herzl and others in those days. We have to learn from history, brothers and sisters. We have to learn from history.